We'll have to ask Mr.
Okay, I have started the recording, and so the remainder of the meeting will be recorded, and then I will hand over the recording after it's all done back to your board so that it's not held at the county.
All right, so next on our agenda is our guest speaker, Chris Drone, and I'm not sure I got your title correct, but are you Fire Station of Fire Station number 3? Or did we give you a promotion?
You did. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh,
I'm actually
sorry.
the fire marshal.
Fire
Marshal. Fire Station. Yeah.
So please tell us all about Defensible Space. We really appreciate your joining us.
Yeah. First of all, can you hear me okay? I'm a little bit away from my speaker, so I'm sure it's working. Okay. Forgive me as I share my screen, hopefully here. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
I can.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Does anyone recognize that photograph?
Is that the Yakult burn?
Alcohol burn.
That is the Yakult burn. Yeah, so looks like it, missed a lot of east work, but really skirted on the east side of your alliance there. That fire was actually back in 1902, and it's pretty relevant to what we're talking about. I would like you to take a close look, and you'll note that there's a lot of those homes that are standing with all the trees that have burned around them. So it's a good illustration of what we're going to talk about here. Okay, so like I said, that was in September of 1902, actually killed 38 of our residents. The fire burned through portions of Clark, Skamania, and Cliticut counties, scorching more than 350 square miles. So that perspective, that's over half the area of Clark County. During that event, there were over 100 families that were left homeless. One of the things that aided that event, I mean, it was typical fire season, right? So September, but there were some strong, dry easterly winds that we seem to get every year that, we are concerned about, but those were pretty quick, traveling 36 miles in 36 hours. So there's different theories on the actual causation of the fire. Some folks say it actually could have been sparks that crossed over the Columbia River. Others blame kids that were burning out Yellow Jackets nests, and then others blame folks that were burning their slash piles. What's a little unique about back then is they didn't require or implement formal investigations for wildfires. So, some of this is just wives' tales. Some of it could be true. We don't really know what started that particular fire. Here's a map of the actual area that was affected. One theory is that down on the southeast corner there, that the fire may have started in Eagle Creek area and then jumped the Columbia River with those winds, and then burned around the Silver Star area and then the Yakult burn that you know now. A little ironic with that Eagle Creek area. I mean, we also had a large fire. I think everyone remembers that one from 2017, the Eagle Creek fire that was started by a kid with fireworks. So that's a little history of our area and fires. What we've learned is basically, I mean, it's something that we have to live with. They're going to continue to happen, but there are things that we can all do to protect our homes and neighborhoods and our families. Multiple studies that have been done by folks a lot smarter than myself that show that proper property maintenance and defensible space can really reduce the chances of losing your home during one of these large wildfire events. So what we're going to focus on is the being ready portion. So what can you do to protect your house from one of these wildfires? And that really starts with creating and maintaining a defensible space around your house. And then also focusing on the house itself. That's one thing that people often forget is, they'll focus on all the property around their home, but not what they can do to actually make their home more fire safe, on the exterior. So definition of defensible space is basically the buffer that you create by removing dead plants, grass, and weeds around your home, and that just keeps the fire away from your house. There's a term called hardening your home, which means basically using construction techniques and materials that will help your home withstand really embers and sometimes radiant from fires. Okay, so when we talk about this defensible space, really we like to break it down into 3 different zones that each have their own elements of concerns, and each have things that you can do to protect those zones. And these are listed in the order of importance, I would say, and also in the order of ease. So, I mean, that immediate zone, that 0 to 5 feet, that includes your home, and that's where you want to start your focus. We'll talk more about that, but that's really the most important and the easiest part to do. So if you're going to start anywhere, that's where you want to start. Once you get that area mitigated, then you move on out to the 5 to 30 foot zone. After that, if you have the time and energy, that's when you work on that extended zone, going out to 100 feet or more. Before I go any further, I did share this presentation with Marley to distribute to anyone that wants it. So that and some other materials that you'll have access to. Plus, we'll have time for questions at the end if you have any. Okay, so that immediate, the most important ignition zone, known as the non-combustible zone, or also the no ember zone. Really what we're focusing on there is protecting that home and that immediate area from fires that could start from embers, specifically embers that would be landing in that area. So in a perfect world, you would see that home, and then out to 5 feet, that 5 foot space from the home to your next zone would be nothing but river rock, right? Nothing combustible, but that's not always the look that people want. So there's still things you can do. We ask that you remove all dead and dying vegetation away from the house, and then that includes on top of the house, your roofs, your gutters, decks, things like that. If you are looking at landscaping, please no combustible bark, dust, or mulch in that 5 foot zone. We really recommend gravel, river rock, pavers, non-combustible materials in that area. And the reason for that, of course, is that, if an ember were to land in that bark dust or combustible material, then it doesn't need to go very far to reach your home. So branches in that immediate zone, you really want to keep them away from the house if you can. Definitely don't want them touching the house. If it's near a chimney or something that's going to produce heat, you want to keep those branches at least 10 feet away. You can have plants there, but you want to make sure that they're low-growing plants that are easily maintained and always watered so they don't get too dry there. There's a lot of openings in your home that you need, right? So you need attic ventilation, you need crawl space ventilation. Sometimes you'll have protection on those openings, sometimes you won't. One of the easiest fixes you can do if you do not have protection for your attic ventilation would be to install just some wire metal mesh on those openings. Basically, that would stop any embers that could blow towards your home and up into the attic. Once it gets into an attic or even a crawl space, it's almost game over. If it's, you really can't fight those fires very well. So we really want to keep those embers out of those spaces. And then, of course, move any flammable material away from the walls, and please do not store anything underneath your deck, anything that would be combustible. All right, so once all that's addressed and taken care of to your satisfaction, that's when we recommend you would start to work on that intermediate zone. They call that the lean, clean, and green zone. So basically you're just trying to keep that area raked, keep it mowed, keep it watered, and keep the trees to a minimum, make sure that they're pruned. So one of the things we look at are what they're called ladder fuels, and those are the fuels that you will find underneath a tree. Not a tree itself, but they could be, a bush or something, or just weeds, long grass. If an ember were to land into those ladder fuels, it basically acts like what it sounds like, a ladder, so that it would burn up, out, and potentially into the tree itself. So you really want to focus on those ladder fuels along the ground. And then with that, you want to make sure that you have your trees pruned. Sorry. The rule of thumb for that is you want your trees pruned up 6 feet above the ground, if you can. For the smaller trees that aren't, going to be able to sustain that, then we ask that you do not exceed 1/3 of the overall tree height. So once that zone is taken care of, the last zone is called the extended ignition zone, and the goal here is to basically reduce any fuels that we can. We're not asking you to go and clear cut the woods in this zone by any means, but we do want you to remove dead plant and tree material, get rid of any heavy accumulations of ground, litter, or debris, and those small conifers you may not need that are in between your mature tree clusters could be mitigated. And then you also want to start to look at your storage sheds or outbuildings with that area. Basically, a storage shed or an outbuilding, you almost want to treat that just like you would your house, right? So when you have another shed, building, barn, whatever it is, these same rules apply, especially that 5-foot immediate zone. Because what could happen if an ember, hits that barn is now you're not worried about embers hitting your home. You're worried about that radiant heat that's produced by that fuel load from that barn spreading directly to the home. As far as trees go, there's some rules of thumb, not an exact science, but what they've said is that trees that are 30 to 60 feet from the home should have at least 12 feet between canopy tops, and the ones a little further out from 60 to 100 feet from the home should have at least 6 feet between the canopy. So this is just a diagram of that with the 3 zones represented, kind of giving you a visual of where we like to see that tree spacing. And it gets more liberal as you get further away into the forest, but as you're closer to the home, we recommend that you keep those trees spaced further apart. Some other considerations to help us out if we need to respond, please ensure that your home and neighborhood has legible and clearly marked street names and numbers so we can easily find that. If that's something you need help with and you're in the District 3 here, we can actually provide, we make those signs, address signs for you, and we can deliver and install those. The driveways for emergency vehicles, we ask that you have at least 12 feet of width and keep the trees pruned so that we have a vertical clearance of 15 feet, so we're not knocking into trees as we respond. And then we ask that you develop, discuss, and practice an EAP, an emergency action plan, with the folks in your home. What are you going to do if there is a wildfire or just a house fire? That's something that you should be prepared for and have a plan for, and we can definitely help with that as well. And of course, know 2 ways out of your neighborhood and have a pre-designated meeting place. So it's just like what we tell folks, if you have a house fire, right, there's 2 ways out of your room, 2 ways out of your house, and you want to meet outside of your house. Same thing goes for a wildfire. You want to try to find, if you can, 2 ways out of your property, and then a remote meeting place where everyone can be accounted for after the fact. Always, always, always evacuate if you feel it's unsafe to stay. Pay attention to those orders. Pay attention to your gut as well. Even if you don't receive an emergency notification and you feel threatened, please get out. Second to last slide here. So other considerations. You want to make sure that you have multiple garden hoses around your home. So if you do happen to catch a little spot fire, you're able to put it out yourself. Consider getting a pump if you have a pool or a well, just to give you more water supply. If you're getting to the point where you're either building a new structure or remodeling, and you're talking about construction materials, I would recommend you think about ignition resistant materials. So we're talking your cement fiberboard, metal roofs or composition roofs, things like that. And then even you go as far as to make sure you have dual pane windows with screens that would protect you if one pane should break from heat. You still have that second one, and a screen that would protect your home from embers that would potentially get in. If you happen to live in the district, I know that we represent a large portion of the East Fork Alliance. We do have a free fire risk specialist program. Basically, we try to go door to door in our high-risk areas, and we'll do a survey along with you. We'll walk the property around your house and point out all of the things that we've talked about here and more. We do that so we can identify and mitigate fire danger and educate the community. It's a free service. If that's something you would like to schedule, you can do that with me personally, and I have my contact information on the last slide here. Right there. And then I've also included some resources. There's 3 really good videos if you have time or inkling to watch those. That goes a little more in depth on what I'm talking about here, and even some of the actual science behind it. Any questions? I know that's a lot to take in.
Antonio had a question. What do we do with the accumulation of the plant material that results from regular property maintenance?
Yeah. That's a good question. If you're, well, based off the map I'm looking at of your neighborhood association, you know, I think land clearing, burning should be permitted throughout. I don't see any incorporated areas, right? So with a permit, you can safely burn that land clearing debris away from the house, away from combustibles, in a pile up to 10 feet in diameter. And we actually issue those permits through our website at Fire District 3. You can also find them from District 13, 10, Clark County Fire Rescue, whichever district you're in. That would be one option. Of course, you want to be safe with that and do it properly. Another option, you could have it chipped, mulched, pushed out further into that 100-foot zone, so it's not really an issue for your home.
I have a question for you. We have a keypad operated gate that provides access to our property. I'm just thinking about a fire that might disable that. There is a key operated opening that that I wonder if I should provide the District 3 people a key to.
Yeah, there's a couple of options there. So you're in District 3?
Yes.
Okay. What we recommend on those is that you order and have installed what's called a Knox box. It's basically a little metal box that you would anchor to your fence post or something on our side of the fence. Within that box, you would either place your gate code or a key to the gate. Once that box is closed, only Fire District 3 can open the lid to that box. So that's the preferred method for us, rather than trying to hunt down through our notes what the gate code is. I mean, if we see that Knox box or a Knox padlock, then we know we have a key to get in right away.
Okay.
We will always get in, but that would make it faster and less damage to your gate. Those can actually be ordered on our website as well, which I provide
Okay.
on the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Chris, I read in the news that there was no end to the fire season this year. It's continuing, it's quote unquote the fire season. Is that true for our area, or is the rain making the big difference?
The rain's helping in our area, not so much as we get south. I mean, people are optimistic, but still a little careful to say it has ended. I mean, typically you're looking at early July to late September, right? That's your standard fire season for us.
I have a question. I'm actually on the East Fork itself, and there's a road down past my house. I've always been wondering what the capability is of your fire trucks of pumping from the river.
It can be done. All of our rigs have that capability to pump from the river if we have good access to it. I don't know the logistics of your particular residence. More likely than not, if there's not a hydrant in the area, we would make sure we have enough water tenders dispatched to your home, maybe 2 or 3 on an initial structure fire. And basically what those folks would do, those 3 vehicles, is just make a relay to fill up each engine as it's suppressing the fire. You know, so you'd have one would fill up the engine, disconnect, then go find a hydrant, start to fill up, and tender number 2 would hook up to the engine, and you'd have a steady supply of water.
Yeah.
But we do have the capability to draft in rivers and lakes.
Okay. I was thinking not so much, I'm not so much worried about the house as there's quite a bit of acreage around me that's, I've got mine pretty cleaned up, but there's bordering fairly dense woods and stuff, and I'm worried more of a forest fire heading towards my property. So
Yeah.
probably the tanker's not gonna be enough.
No, we'd be looking at probably some aerial support as well, for something like that.
Okay.
Some water drops, that would definitely be, if it got to that point, it would not just be our district responding, but get DNR involved pretty quickly with their
Okay.
resources, which,
I'm afraid we've run out of time. If you have additional questions for Chris, please send them to me at the Afana email address, and I'll forward them to Chris, and he can answer them. But we need to move on. But Chris, thank you very much. It was always very informative. This is the second time I always pick something up new from your presentation. Okay.
thanks.
And
Thanks for
hopefully
having
we
me,
don't have to
everyone.
drive home. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher, are you
Yeah.
on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. We have a
Great.
picture too, but can't tell what it is.
Well, that's I'm on my phone.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I see. Oh, I
So-
saw you. I saw your head. Okay.
My fan, I got a fan in my office too.
Yeah.
Christopher is making very good efforts to try to change a very old firearms ordinance. And he's not against firearms, and he'll explain it to you, but he's not against firearms. He just doesn't want to get shot. And I think all of us are pretty much like that. Okay,
you, Kitty.
Christopher, go ahead.
Thank you, Kitty. So thank you for the time. Yes, and this is an ordinance that's been on the books for this last 15th, last Friday. It's 47 years old. And it's called No Shooting Near Habitation. And I want you to think about the thesis of my presentation, and that is, do we have the right to live on our property in peace and in safety? So that's the thesis of my presentation. And this is not a very well-known ordinance. In fact, in 2017, when a new neighbor moved in, he was shooting a .308 rifle and a 9mm handgun, semi-automatic, at exploding targets in his backyard. To say the least, the noises scared us out of our wits. It shook our house and rattled our windows. And so that was the first time we learned about this ordinance. We did some investigation about this ordinance, and we found out about some things. Well, first, let me give you some stats. 47 years ago, 1974, when this ordinance was enacted, there was 128,000 people in Clark County, total. Today, there's over 500,000. And that's an increase of 290% of population increase in total Clark County. And there have been quite a few complaints from people too, with gunfire. 2018, 798 people called 911. 2019, 834 called. And in 2020, 1,166 people called 311 and 911 because of their concern about gunfire. This is all Clark County. So that's from 2018 to 2020, that's an increase of 46% increase. So that seems like I don't know about you folks, but that seems like a big number. And we've talked to, when I say we, my wife and I have talked to commanders in the sheriff's department, and we've been told, well, those numbers are skewed. People don't know the difference between a backfired car and somebody shooting a firearm. Well, when I hear a firearm going, dot, 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 that doesn't sound like a car. And if cars are making that much noise in Clark County, there
So,
should be, there
Can I,
should be
can I
more,
ask a question?
there should be more people, more car repair places in Clark County. Yes, go ahead.
Those are great statistics. Thanks for sharing those. Do you know how many of those are in the East Fork area?
No, I don't. Cressa doesn't provide that data. The question we had for Cressa was, how many complaints did you receive, from people calling in? So we don't have that granular data from them. It's just overall numbers. Now, but a great question. I wish we could have that. But so we learned about this ordinance, this 47-year-old ordinance, that it was the county council that has the power to make a change. Now, as Katie was saying, we're not looking to eliminate this ordinance. We are just looking to modernize the ordinance. Part of the ordinance is that where we live, we're just south of the East Fork. You can shoot muzzle loaders and shotguns, and that's it. But just north of the East Fork, there are no restrictions at all. You can shoot 50 calibers, semi-automatics. I guess you could even do bazookas. So, but if you go past that East Fork, it's open season. You can there's no request, there's no restrictions at all. And so once we were kind of concerned hearing about this, so we found out that the county council was the group that can make a change to this, to update it, not to eliminate it. We presented to all 5 counselors. It started November of 2019, and it ended at February 2020. And we got pretty good response from 3 of the 5 counselors. 2 of the counselors pushed back big time on us, saying that people don't know the difference between a car backfire and a handgun fire. And one said, "Oh, we can't make any changes." So this was kind of depressing in a way. But from February of 2020, we didn't get a hearing on this with the county councilors until July 15th, 2020. About 5 to 6 months later. And during that time, on July 15th, the county council decided to put a pause on this, to do no work on this, to do no discussion, to do no information and looking at it, to update it. And then July of this year, it was a year anniversary since they put a pause on this. And I've been reaching out to them since July and no response at all. And we're kind of getting like a complex. We don't know why that, over 12, 15 months, why the county council doesn't want to touch this. And the makeup of the council, I think, has maybe something to do with it. As you probably know, maybe you don't know, is that there is a quorum in place right now with 3 to 2 counselors. It's going to be a 3 to 2 vote basically on most everything now. And all we've been asking for is, can we have a virtual meeting to discuss this issue? And since the pandemic and since they were doing virtual meetings, council has had hundreds of virtual meetings, but not on this issue. We've reached out to them many, many times since the 1-year anniversary of them tabling this issue, and no response from not one counselor. Now, let me give you an example of what we're asking for. It's very simple. Right now, the way the ordinance speaks, the way it's written, somebody can discharge a firearm 100 yards, not from your property line, but from a habitation, which we think is kind of weird. It should, and there were two real estate agents on the board at that time, and we would think that the property line would be sacred to real estate agents, but apparently it's not. So what we're asking for and what we're suggesting is that it would be 100 yards from the discharging point to a property line. And the second thing we're asking is that from the shooting point, when somebody discharges a firearm, it should be 100 yards, 360 degrees from that shooting point. Because if think about it, just in our neighborhood, it could be 100 yards from our property line, but then to the north, it could be 25 yards to a habitation, and to the south, it could be 50 yards to a habitation. So back to my thesis. Do we have the right to live on our property in peace and safety? And apparently, this is not a priority with the county council.
Christopher, what do you think your neighbors and neighborhood association, what can they do to help you with this issue?
Well, I guess thank you. It's like reaching out to the county council, and it's very clear in our presentation to them. We're not looking to eliminate this. We're not asking to take any rights away, but we want to increase. This is a public safety issue, and we would like people to reach out to the council and say, please, can we have a virtual meeting on this issue to consider the modernization of this 47-year-old and very vague and archaic ordinance. And there's a good way to reach the county council. The best way is a letter. Second is email. And you can reach all 5 county councilors at this email address. It's boardcom, BOARDCOM at clark.wa.gov. Boardcom at clark.wa.gov. It reaches all 5 counselors, and you get a receipt to know that they received it. But we just don't understand at this point. This has been going on since 2017. And we're not getting any response at all from anybody. We're getting pushback. When we presented in face-to-face in person, 3 of the counselors seemed to be on board to modernize it. 2 of the counselors were just did not want to deal with it. They pushed back big time.
Well, Christopher, I hope you hope at least some of the neighborhood association members contact you and say they're willing to help, but we can all express our opinions by sending notes and correspondence to our counselors. And we appreciate your coming here today and sharing your information with us. We don't always have to agree, but some of us out there are really very concerned about this issue. Again, we really appreciate your input.
This is a very important
To the best of luck.
This is very important public safety issue. Thank you, Katie.
Okay, thank you. We have to move on. We need to get an update on the Yakult mine, Yakult gravel mine, and we're going to have the chairman of the East Fork Community Coalition give us an update. Hopefully he's still there. Dick,
Here.
you are. There you are. Dick, please share.
Okay.
Share an update. That's Dick Lewinberg.
Well, thank you. Well, the update is that this whole application to expand the mine, excuse me, has just been moving very, very slowly. The application is currently on hold with the county while the applicant, which is Stordall, responds to some of the questions that the county had. We don't know what all those questions were, but at least some of them were related to noise and the fact that it's apparent that the county has even discovered that the quarry has been exceeding the limitations of the state law for years. It's been very difficult to get the arms around, because I'm sure Mike Boyer there with his COVID beard on can speak to that much more specifically. But one of the problems we have is that the permits make specifications about what the mine or anyone else is supposed to do. But in the case of the mines, they're structured in such a way that the county is unprepared and unable to do anything about it. Unless Mike wants to camp out in North County sometime and spend an inordinate amount of time, he's not there. I mean, there's no really good, easy way to kind of get the arms around it. And that's part of the problem what our group is after. So our group, frankly, was formed because we thought that the quarry should not be allowed to expand until they had a proven track record of having lived within the current requirements for the quarry. At this point, that still hasn't happened, and we still feel that the quarry should not be allowed to expand, and that the emphasis ought to be to get a better balance between the livability for the folks that live in that area and the needs of the quarry and the development industry. And there's just not been a balance struck yet, and it's unclear about exactly how we're going to get that. But sometime probably after the first of the year, there will be a hearing to deal with the application for the expansion of the quarry. And our best hope is that in that process, in that hearing, we will come up with some hopefully, one, the expansion will be denied. And secondly, that a more workable way of monitoring the activity of the quarry will be built in so that the people in the area can enjoy their homes and their properties a little bit more in peace, and that the county will be in a position to do a better job of monitoring things. Because frankly, not because of of failures of people like Mike or anything else, but just general failures. The county has failed in its responsibility towards the citizens of this county as it relates to surface mining, and they've done precious little to improve that over the last several years, and that's really the crux of what we're working on. So, not much has happened. It's moving very slowly. I would expect that after the first of the year, it'll move somewhat more quickly because there will be this hearing, and it'll have a finite life, and the hearing examiner will come down and say yay or nay on a bunch of different issues. And so, what we're asking the people in the community, including the people within the East Fork Alliance Neighborhood Association, is when that hearing comes, don't be bashful. Let the people know, let the hearing examiner know, let everybody you can get to listen to know how you feel about it. If you're happy, let them know that too. But it's our impression that there are darn few happy citizens. Nobody wants to, property values aren't going up because everybody wants to live next door to a rock quarry. There are a lot of problems, and there are a lot of people whose lives are just not as good as they should be because these problems are not being addressed at the county level. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but there's just not much more to say. So thank you.
Yeah, Dick, if people have specific concerns, would it make sense? I don't know if we have your contact information, but they could contact through Ifana. We could forward if they wanted to get more involved in specific quarry issues.
That would be good. And also the East Fork Community Coalition has a very prosperous website where people can go as well. And that's probably much more effective than trying to contact. I mean, I don't mind people contacting me, but I'm not really good at that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm much better if they go to somebody who knows what they're doing. So if they would contact the East Forest Community Coalition or IFANA, and then I can get the message from there, and I would be delighted to respond to anybody who has questions or concerns.
Okay, one other, there is one other potential opportunity if people want to get more involved. One of the conditional use permits for the quarry requires them to have a neighbor advisory group. And it's a little bit unclear right now because the original neighborhood association near the quarry is no longer in existence. And IFANA is now the neighborhood association that incorporates the quarry. So it's still kind of being worked out between the operator and the county and us, just how we're to provide our representatives. But the neighborhood association should be entitled to 2 representatives to serve in that group. And I'll just say that if anybody feels like that's something they'd be interested in doing, they could reach out and let us know on the IFANA website. And I can keep you posted if it materializes that we can place a couple of people on that group. So that's another way you could potentially get involved.
Right, and I think that's a great idea. And I think, a thing that's frustrating, I mean, it's a classic example of what frustrates some of us who have been involved in this for the last couple of 3 years. Everybody talks about how the need for transparency and openness and all that good sort of stuff. I can't get anybody to even tell me who's on that neighborhood group. It is the exact opposite of supposedly. I mean, this is a group that's supposed to represent the people that have problems, and other than perhaps the people around the group, I know of no one who even knows who they are. So it's bizarre. It's
a big flaw in a conditional use permit. It's poorly outlined. I think Dick has got a lot of very, very accurate and valid points there. The county has no direct supervision over it. We're not allowed to disclose who's on it. It's definitely a point of frustration.
Yeah, and I hope don't take this personally, because
I don't,
but
sir.
it's nuts.
Yes.
Well, Dick, may I ask a question?
Yes.
Dick, it seems like we're in the same boat with both of our issues. People don't seem to have to respond, even though they're elected officials. And it's very frustrating that you reach out to these folks and the county council and no one responds. And I guess as an elected official, you have that opportunity to say, I'm not going to respond. And that's what's going on with us. So it seems like you're going through the same frustration, but in a different type of organization or people in charge.
I can't argue with that. You look around, drive through the county. Most of the people live relatively close to the Columbia River. And the things that happen to the folks up north might as well be on a different planet, I guess. And we need to find some way to have the political powers understand better that their job is to all of us, not just to the folks in downtown Vancouver or whoever the heck it is. They are not just in the development community. We're not opposed to development. By golly, I mean, why should the people in your neighborhood association be paying the price so that people 20 miles away can have cheap rock? And how is that fair? And that's kind of what it's coming down to.
Yeah.
Does
Don't give
anybody
up.
else have any comments on that? Because we need to move along. We're getting towards the end here.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
So I live by Kelly Road and I noticed that they repaved it. Was that the rock quarry that helped pay for that because of their trucks damaging the road, or is that something that the county paid for?
County.
County.
The county paid for it. And, you know, and good for them, and because the road's just dreadful shape. And if you get to the East Fork Community Coalition, we have a position paper, if you will, that states what our objectives are, and that's available through the website that Marilee put up. We feel that there ought to be reinstituted extra money from the quarry to maintain those roads and to improve those roads. And they really need to be improved. I mean, I invite anybody that drives up there and look at the curves on that new improved road and see what condition the center lines are in. They have been erased by the tires of the gravel trucks as they cross over the center line around the curves. Now, if there's somebody around that wants to tell me that that's a really good idea to have fully loaded truck and trailers crossing the center line on curves because they can't manage the curves otherwise. And you know, and the whole idea that there's no problem, I mean, that's nonsense. All you have to do is drive on the road and say, no kidding, there is a real serious problem just waiting to happen.
And you know, those trucks fill up the whole lane. There's no leeway. They fill up the entire lane.
Well, those of you in the area, you know that to be true, and how that doesn't make a bigger impact upon some of our government folks is I mean, I never claimed to understand those sorts of things, and I sure don't understand them now. But to Katie's point, those are the kinds of things that, particularly from people in the area, let the folks on the council know how you feel. I mean, it may not do any good, but at least you can blow off some steam.
Well,
Don't give
thank you,
up, Dick.
Dick.
Don't give up.
This is an issue that's not going away anytime soon. And East Fork Community Coalition, if you want to be a part of the fight to mitigate some of the problems that the mine is causing, then please contact the East Fork Community Coalition. Volunteer your services. They'll keep you posted. They're an excellent organization. They
And
really
I
are
don't
trying
want
hard.
to, excuse me, Katie, but I don't want this to come across as sounding like we're discouraged or defeatist here. When we finally get our chance, we, the citizens of Clark County, when they get to that hearing, we are planning to be aggressively represented in that hearing, and we don't intend to roll over and get trod upon. So yes, as Katie said, we need all the help of everybody that would line up with us, because frankly, politicians worry about their votes, and we need to have them worry about the votes that we can influence as much as the votes that the contractors can influence. And they're not bad people, all of them. Maybe none of them, but they just need to understand better and hear from us about what's going on that's wrong.
Well, thank you, Dick. And Mike, thank you very much. We won't hold you. We're just going to talk about the internet for a little while. But thank you for your efforts, Mike. And absolutely, you too, Dick, and the whole East Fork Community Coalition.
And thank you to everybody. I mean, we have had some success at the lower level. Stordals were regularly, doing holiday trips, violating the CUP, and it was because of community members from this group actually reporting it and stepping up that we got them to stop that. We're able to find them, able to win a few lower level code hearings. So minor stuff in the big picture, but it does help. And all the complaints that come to me do get tracked, and then of course sets public record. It can go to show part of the bigger puzzle as to what's going on in terms of the impacts of the community with their operations.
Just pipe in. What do you? We have one more question before we move on.
Mike, this is sorry. There was you were able to get count over at the trucks that was over the allotted 30 hours. Could you tell us what happened with that? Were they given a warning? Were they given a citation? What was the follow-up with that? Did Mike hear
Did you
me?
hear that?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear any of that. I'm not sure if that was addressed to me or not.
Oh, because I was muted. You're good. Get a little closer.
Sorry, let's try again. Hi,
Hey,
Mike.
Marie.
We spoke a while back, and it's limited to 30 trucks an hour, and you were able to get a count of over 30, a violation. Could you tell
I
us?
can't hear it.
I'm so
can't hear
sorry.
you.
I'm really
Can't
struggling
hear
to hear this.
What's happening? Sorry, let's try this again. Is that better?
Yes.
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 Okay, I apologize. Mike, you were able to take the time to count trucks for an hour because the two mechanical methods have not worked out.
Correct.
And you were able to get a violation of, I think it was 32 and
Yes.
instead of the 30. Could you tell us what happened with that? Were they given a citation or a warning, or how did that
So,
go?
I mean, you can definitely argue this in the nuance of code enforcement for sure. But just based on past practice, for every separate section of the violation of the CP that they violate, we've given them a courtesy warning. So they received an official warning. If we do get another confirmed violation, that will result in a citation. Since we've had repeated violations from them within a 2-year period, they will receive the maximum fine, which would be $1,000 per violation. So if we have individuals that are out there counting trucks and want to be party of record, that's something that I could move forward with the citation if we do have that. Our office, just in general, for code enforcement, we're a little understaffed. I certainly have not had the time to give the service mines the attention that they need, in terms of heading up there. So it's not being monitored like it was at one point in time from the county. I mean, at one point in time, there was an entire staff position dedicated to it. We're nowhere close to that right now in terms of enforcement.
Do I understand you correctly, Mike? You're saying now that they will accept a civilian count?
So it's something I'm certainly willing to make the argument for. I mean, the reality is the citations that we issued for them operating on holidays were civilians stepping up, taking photographs, and being willing to be party of record on the complaints. And those held up in a hearing process, they've held up in citations. So there should be nothing different than if people wanted to actually take the time and do the truck counts. And if they're over, that's something that I personally would be willing to bring forward. Now, if it were to be appealed and go to hearing, can I guarantee you what the hearing examiner is going to rule on that? Of course not. Based on that basic principle that, we have individuals that are willing to step up, put their names on it, so to speak. That's something that I would certainly support.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I know people can find your contact information through the county, but can you state your phone number again for
Yeah,
people
I'll
to,
put
and
it in the chat
not just
too.
for quarry, not just for quarry issues, but
Yeah.
but all the other fun things you do, nuisances and all of that. I think it'd be helpful for people to have your number handy, because, and I could say from experience, Mike is very responsive, and it's worth calling in the complaints that you have to have Mike look into it. So
I definitely appreciate that, Gary. So yeah, my cell phone number is 360-836-9745. And email is mike.boyer@clark.wa.gov. And I'll make sure to, someone I wrote that down, but I'll make sure to include it in the chat as well. And try to be very, very accessible to folks. We are short staffed for what it's worth. So it's civil enforcement. It can be a painfully long process sometimes, but we do our best.
thanks.
Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And are you in the office, Mike? It looks like you're in the office.
Yeah, we're creeping up a little north of a 12-hour day so far. It's been a
Oh
long.
my gosh.
Well, our last subject, and I'm not going to hold you, all I'm going to do is start the subject, but we could devote an entire meeting to the internet, high-speed internet. And there's quite a bit of information out there. I was willing to share with you, but there's no way we have time. So all I'm going to share with you is a survey In June of 2020, a survey was posted in the newspaper, I believe it was the Columbia or the Reflector, asking for people's opinions on the lack of high-speed internet in North County. And there were some, I believe there were 225 responses, and I think they were all very angry people. So it's not a statistically correct survey, but I did want to share a few bits of information. Take another 5 minutes, and then we'll have another meeting that'll be more devoted to this, which is our number one issue, is the lack of high-speed internet in North County. But the survey was mostly responded to by battleground participants and listener participants based on their zip codes. And okay, here we go. The average, the price range for monthly internet ranged from $45 all the way to $149. I pay $150, so I guess I'm there at the high range. I use HughesNet, and yeah, and I have a data limit. And my HughesNet runs out about halfway through the month. My data, I have about 30 gig, yeah, and it runs out, so, and it goes down to 1.5. So being at 30, it goes down to 1.5. But anyway, it's very costly. Okay, the question was asked whether or not internet's cost is reasonably priced, and 78% of the responders said no, that it's you're not getting your money's worth from the internet cost. And they were asked what is your speed on your internet, how fast your download is, and 5 megabytes per second or slower was the number one response, and that's 43% only get 5 megabytes per second. And when you're on broadband using cable, you can get as high as 200. I think my mother, she stayed in a nursing home. She never used the internet, but her speed was 200. Mine with CenturyLink was 1.5. Mine currently again is 30 during half the month. And I think the next highest was 21.97% at 6 to 24 megabytes per second, which is not bad. Are you satisfied with your current internet speed? 91.5% of the responders were not satisfied with their speed. No kidding. Okay. Most of the people, some 56%, had unlimited use. They had unlimited data, which is great. I don't have unlimited data. I know what that feels like when you're getting towards the end of the middle of the month and you start running out of data. But one thing is true, that the only way that I can watch shows on my cell phone, for example, is by using a cell phone. I don't stream. I've not one time properly streamed a movie or a TV show or a YouTube on my 1.5 gigabytes. Okay. 27% of the individuals had unlimited use, but the speed of downloads decreased after I reach a certain level. That's me. I'd have unlimited use, but it would slow down midway through the month, excuse me. Which service do I currently use? The number one provider was CenturyLink, and the number two provider was HughesNet, and the number three was Viasat. That's a satellite. Of course, HughesNet and Viasat are satellite providers. And I did want to read some of the comments to you folks. TDS was also TDS is a broadband, not satellite provider, and that was 36%. Yeah, TDS Telecom. But I did want to read some of the comments about the internet service that's being provided to North County. Most people sign a 2-year contract. I don't know if I had to sign a 3-year contract. I guess I wasn't listening or paying much attention because I signed a 3-year contract with HughesNet. Okay. Last thing I'll do, I've got about a minute, and I can read some of these comments. from some of the folks in North County. Xfinity is about 1,000 miles, 1,000 feet away, but they want $10,000 to run service to 4 houses on our street. Pretty much was a straight line. They were going to charge them $10,000 for 4 houses. Another comment, after 18 years, it is worse than I've ever had to deal with. Its so-called improvements have been a disappointment and a really disgrace of modern technology. We really need a new company that can give us better options because there are none. Another comment, would like to see the services improved at least to meet the FCC standards. Barely functional isn't acceptable to business owners. Another comment, TDS monopolizes the area and they don't have to do anything. Please help. Thank you. Another one, TDS has a monopoly. That's another monopoly one. Another one, cuts out random cuts. Could be in the middle of a video meeting and happens frequently. Their signal cuts out. I've got page after page of negative remarks about the internet service that are being provided right now. And hopefully when we gather again, hopefully you'll attend, I can talk to you about some options that we do have about perhaps giving us a shot at getting better internet coverage. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Katie, I've got one I'd like to ask the group. Since that survey was done, Starlink has started providing at least limited service that, in my opinion, is probably going to be the future for high-speed internet for North County. Did anybody get in on the beta? I tried to get in on the beta test and was not accepted into it. I have heard of one person in Ridgefield that I want to ask some questions about that because they did get in on the beta.
Hey, Gary,
Yes.
could you tell us about Starlight? I've not heard of them.
Oh, Starlink. Well, you've probably heard of SpaceX.
Of
that are-
course.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk, SpaceX, they have a division that's putting up
It's satellite. Gotcha.
low Earth orbit satellites. And they have, I don't know, 800, I think, up now, and they're providing some limited
1,800,
service.
yeah,
1,800.
1,800. And they plan on 42,000.
Yeah, and as they get more satellites up, then it's going to become more widely available. You can actually put a deposit down. It's first come, first served for service. If you go out now and put your zip code in, they'll probably say it's going to be 2023 before there's enough bandwidth to expand to new people. In May, I put down a deposit, $99. And so if I go out and check, it's—
Is that the cost each month is $99?
That's actually going to be the cost each month, but it'll be up to 150 megabit service. So
The equipment, it's a dish, it's the smallest dish, will cost $499.
yeah, plus taxes and handling and stuff, it's about $600, and then $99 a month.
Is it pretty fast?
But yeah, but good.
It averages at 70 megabytes per second. 70 is the average.
So you can go out starlink.com and put in your zip code, and they'll probably tell you, 2023 is when you can get service. But you can also, if you decide to go that route and get on the waiting list, you can put down your $99 deposit now. It's refundable. So I don't think you're going to keep your money if you change your mind, or, if it takes too long and you choose some other service. But if you get in line, you're going to get it sooner than if you don't get in line. So, but you can read up on, their whole service and everything. I got pretty excited about it. But like I say, I don't know anybody firsthand to talk to them about the service they're getting. I do want to do that. I was hoping somebody in our group maybe had some experience with it. But go check it out. I really think they're going to be the first ones to service our area, because they don't have to run fiber optic and all that stuff that maybe eventually CenturyLink and some of the others will do. But
They
I
are
think-
having problems. They are having problems right now with us
yeah,
getting enough equipment because of the supply chain.
yeah,
They also have a problem with liquid oxygen. Liquid oxygen is not available, and chips and microchips
Yeah.
not available. So their aspiration is 42,000 satellites, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But the bottom line, and this is what I was going to cover if we'd had more time, is the bottom line is that satellite coverage is going to reach us in North County a whole lot earlier than any cable or any DSL. Bottom line. And HughesNet's not bad. Customer service is good. Viasat, don't know a whole lot about that. All I know is I called up all of these services and they do not provide service as of yet to
yeah.
North County, except for
I did-
HughesNet does, Viasat does, and if you get on a waiting line that's 2023, then that would be Starlink.
Yeah, there is one other. I saw a comment about Step House. That's something you could check into. I checked into it, but you have to have it's microwave based. It's good service. Price seemed reasonable, but I couldn't get it at my house because there are trees in the way and you have to have line of sight. But you could check into Step House and they'll come out and see if they can get a connection for you. And I know the reviews for Step House have been good from people in our neighborhood that have gotten it. So again, that's one that maybe you could step up to now.
Yeah.
Starlink has a problem with it that it faces most satellite services. They have a problem with the weather. Rain, snow, heat can distort the reception on your satellite. And the problem with Starlink also is that you have to put it together yourself. Some assembly required can be some of the most horrifying words that are out there. But once you get your equipment, then they help you. They go bend over backwards to help you. But before you get your equipment, they just ignore you totally.
Katie and Gary, I have an anecdote, not from our region, but my sister, she was suffering through with HughesNet. She lives in southeastern Washington. Just installed Starlink, 125 is the speed download. And
Nice.
she said the installation was simple, $500. It's $99 a month. She's ecstatic.
Great. That's what I wanted to hear.
What I was eventually going to get to is that there are some things that we can do in order to speed up the process with cable, with broadband, with DSL, because in some areas because of the trees, and we live in a treed area, you're just not going to be able to get the reception. So you don't have much of a choice. But we can talk about that next time, and then we will have a quarterly meeting. And I don't want to hold you too long, because I know some of you are probably checking out and going to sleep because it's already.
And if any of you have knowledge or know someone with a lot of knowledge about internet or the future of internet, ideas that we haven't talked about tonight, please reach out with that. And because there's a lot of people in our neighborhood that really do have a lot of knowledge and experience with the internet. They've built internet systems. We'd love to have more people involved in helping inform the group of what our options are or what's coming.
Could we in the future also have a conversation about cell phone towers? Because like I'm off Lucia Falls Road and I get like 2 bars and You know, I have to move on a certain part of my property in order to be able to take a phone call. And I know I'm not the only person, but it'd be nice to have that conversation too.
Absolutely. If that's something that is affecting residents in our neighborhood association, would be glad to support taking that up too.
Yeah, there are things we can do to become a coalition, and the more
Mhm.
people we can get to knock on the doors of our counselors and perhaps share some of the funds that are coming down the pipe to spread broadband across the country, we want our share, and we can make enough noise to get our share. But thank you, everybody, for coming. I know you all want to, check out. Thank you so much.
There
for
is an
participating.
event tomorrow that I'd like to let y'all know about. There's an event tomorrow. There is a drive-through drug take-back event to dispose of any prescription over-the-counter medications, because you're not supposed to flush them or throw them in the trash. The two locations closest to you are going to be the Cowlitz Tribal Public Safety Department in Ridgefield and the Battleground Police Department. And you can drop off any extra or expired prescription or over-the-counter medications, including pills, liquids, and inhalers, from 10 to 2 o'clock on Saturday.
Oh, thanks. Good information.
Well, thank you very much, Mary Lee. And we should thank
Yeah.
Mary Lee because she arranged
Yeah.
she arranged for the Zoom link for us, and we really appreciate it.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Everybody.
Good night.
Thanks again.
Night, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.